Yeah, I think we can skip this slide, and I will probably have to speed up a little bit because we are running out of time, and this talk is actually quite long. I was planning to use a little bit more time than 30 minutes, but I will try to speed it up. So yeah, my name is Martin. I'm the founder of Bitmask. It's a Singaporean-based web design agency. We are building Django websites all the time. This is basically what we do 10 hours a day. And you can find me on Twitter and Google Plus and everywhere. And if you got questions, just shoot me an email. I will try to answer everything. So just a quick raise of hands. Who knows what dry means? Who knows what dry means? OK, that is shockingly few people. Dry, so what means dry? Can you repeat that? Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, OK, of course it means don't repeat yourself. And it doesn't really have anything to do with Python or Django or anything. It's really a programming principle. Yeah? It means you should centralize every single line of code that you can centralize. Never repeat anything in your code. There should be one central point of truth, I think, something like they say. You can find it on Wikipedia. I put on almost every slide, I put small links down there. So when you go through the slides again at home, you want to try this at home, it's like I'm talking about every slide for 1 minute, but there is stuff to read for 1 hour below there. So there's a lot of knowledge in here. So for the students here or people who are not so familiar with Python, let's say you're writing a super simple Python script and let's say you are making a decision. If path is something like that, like we are in my app/bin, I will do something. But if path is home my app lib, I will do something else, right? This is the way I would write the code as well at first. When I think about my problem, I will just hack it down and it looks like this. So, but when you step back and when you look at your code, you will realize there's a pattern. We are using home/my app on 2 occasions in our code base. And this might even be in different files, right? So what happens if it seems to be like some kind of base path. What happens if that changes later on, maybe a month later or so? There's I don't know, somebody decides that it shouldn't be home my app anymore, it should be home my app 2 or whatever. Then you must remember all places where you have put home my app in the first place, right? So a better way to do this would be to define a variable base path, which is home my app, and then you will combine base path with bin or lib down here. So next time when we decide to change home/my app, we only have to do it in one single place up there. Just change the constant, the variable, and the rest of the code will still work. So it's so simple. It's actually embarrassing to talk about it, but you know, when you take away anything from this conference and you're going home, you are curious about Python now, you start writing code, ask yourself, am I repeating myself? Ask yourself this all the time. You can always refactor your code, right? It's no problem when you write messy code like this first, but afterwards look at it and try to refactor it, right? And try to centralize all the things. So I'm talking about Django reusable apps here. Who has written Django projects before? Raise of hands. OK, that's quite a lot. Who has written reusable apps for their Django projects? OK, so a little bit fewer people, but almost all of them. So yeah, imagine, so if you don't know about Django or reusable apps at all, imagine this is a website that we have built, PyPySpy. It's a small, funny service for monitoring our servers, and it emails me when one of the Python packages gets an update, and so my server is out of date, right? And so this service has this green feedback form here. When you click at this green link, the feedback form will appear, and you can write something like, oh my God, I tried to upload my requirements text file and it crashes, what Bjorn did. So, OK, we've got another service, url_unshorten.com, which takes a short URL and it gives you back the long URL again. Some people, due to privacy issues, reasons, they like to have such kinds of services. And yeah, so we've built this service. And again, we have this feedback form there, and when you click there, you get this feedback box. Just this time, it's orange, right? Or next month, we are going to release a service called wegetmarried.com, which allows you to, with a few clicks, and you upload some pictures, you enter some text, and you will have your wedding RSVP website up and running in a few minutes. So again, we have this feedback form, and you already guess it, it just shows up, and it just works. So it's the same thing as don't repeat yourself again, right? We could have copied and pasted this code of this feedback form between these 3 projects, or we could have released this as an open source reusable Django app, and we have it on one central repository in the world, right? And if somebody finds a bug on We Got Married and reports it back to us and says, hey, this feedback form, I don't know, it doesn't work in Safari, we will fix it only once, and we will deploy it to all 3 other projects, and the bug will be fixed for all 3 projects, right? And I mean, if you're doing client work and you are building many Django projects, which is what I'm doing. We have like 30 projects running concurrently at the moment, and we are basically reusing all the same code between all the same projects. And when we get a bug report, we fix it once, and all clients profit from this, right? And they don't even know that. Like, there's one client reporting a bug, and he has to pay for our work, but 29 other clients profit from this implementation as well, right? Okay, so there is this open source repository called Django Feedback Form. You can find it on GitHub. When you go through the README, what do you have to do in order to use this kind of reusable app in your Django project? It's actually very simple. First, you start your virtual environment and you install it by using pip install Django Feedback Form. Then you would open your settings file from your Django project, and you would add the feedback form package to your installed apps. Then you would run database migrations, because the feedback form comes with a few tables. And then you will add some URL patterns, because of course when somebody submits your form, there's some view, some Django view, who has to take the post data and save it to the database and send email notifications and stuff like that. So that's why we need the URL route. And finally, in your template, probably in your base template, you will just load the feedback form tags and execute this feedback form template tag, which will magically add all the CSS files and the HTML markup to the side of the page. So that's all you have to do. You don't have to know anything about programming, actually. You will just follow the README, and bam, you will have a super cool, well-tested and proven feedback form on your website. And this is why the Django ecosystem is so great, actually. There are reusable apps for pretty much anything, right? Okay, so luckily, there is an advanced tutorial now. It hasn't been there when I started working with Django, and I basically stole all these ideas how to build reusable app from other reusable app that I found on the internet, and I looked at their code. But now there's an advanced tutorial on the official Django documentation, which gives you a very good overview on patterns and reasons why you should do it and how you should do it, okay? And so before you start writing your reusable app, you might check if somebody else has already solved your problem. And for this, we have this super great site, djangopackages.com, which has lots and lots of tags on top. So you can say like, I wanna build something about e-commerce. I wanna build a shopping system, and you might wonder if somebody else has already done that. So you just click here at e-commerce, and it will show you like 5 or 6 different e-commerce solutions that are available for Django. And it's like each package, they will have a comparison chart. So you can see what kind of features does each package have, how many people are using it currently. So you can see if it's an abandoned package or if it's actually a package which has an active community. You can see where it's hosted on GitHub or Bitbucket and stuff like that. So it's a really cool site. Before you start writing something, before you start repeating, not yourself, but somebody else, you might check out djangopackages.com first and see if somebody has already solved that problem. Okay, so how do we write reusable apps, actually? First of all, you will create a folder anywhere in your file system, and you will put a lot of metadata files in here. So this doesn't really have to do anything with programming. This is not real implementation of your app. This is just boilerplate stuff that you need in order to publish your app on the Python package index so that people can download it and easily use it, right? Or there's an author's file. Okay, we'll go through the files in detail later. The second set of files that you have to create is your actual implementation of your app. So package name will be the name of your app. So this is like when you do import feedback form, for example, that means this folder should be named feedback forms, right? This is really a Django, this is a Python module. Okay, I will talk about the kind of files in there later as well. And finally, inside of the package name folder, you will have a tests folder, which has, a framework for running your tests immediately and concurrently. I will talk about this later as well. So let's go through all these files. The authors file is basically, you don't have to do this, but when you look at many open source repositories on GitHub, many of those have this file. It's kind of a high score list. It's a hall of fame. Like you wanna encourage people to commit to your repository and help you improving it, right? So you are like promising, if you send me a pull request and you help me developing this feedback form, for example, I will put you into the authors file and you will earn eternal fame and you will be here in this list forever, you know? So this is the idea of the authors file. Changelog is, actually you might say, why do we need a changelog? I mean, we have the Git version control history already. This is like a changelog. If somebody wants to figure out what has been changed recently, just go through the Git history. But then again, the point of reusable apps is that they are so simple to use. So there's a big chance that people are going to use this app that don't really know much about Python, don't really know much about Django, don't really know much about Git, right? They might be confused reading a Git log, actually. And then when we implement one feature, and it's a big feature, we might have 30 commits for one single feature. And let's say for between 2 releases, we are introducing 3 new features. When you add that up, that might be 150 commits for just 3 features. So it's quite painful to read 150 commits compared to 3 lines of text here in this file. So this is why a changelog file can be quite handy, can be quite helpful for somebody who just wants to know, okay, I'm actually using version 0.2.1 now, and I'm going to update this version now in my project to the latest version, so what has been changed? Oh my god, there are backwards incompatible changes. I need to run some database migrations manually, otherwise the update will crash my project. So this is the kind of information you would put into the changelog file to make sure that the people who use your software always know what's going on the first glance, right? I like to put a license file into all my projects. I chose the MIT license. I put the link to the original text down there. There are many, many open source licenses. I think the MIT license is pretty liberal. It basically means do whatever you want, right? As long as you include this license file and make sure that when you steal my code and maybe you even sell it or something, it has to be open source as well, right? There will be a README, which must be a restructured text file. So restructured text is a markup language for writing documentation. And this is basically very simple. It's like you can have headlines. That means when you put equals, 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 equals below that, so it's like you are underlining text. PyPy or GitHub will know this is a headline and it will display it in big fat text. Or you can have code examples by putting 2 colons and then you will indent it 4 spaces. Then GitHub will put a nice background around it and will display it even with syntax highlighting and stuff like that. Yeah, so, and usually your README for a reusable app should have a short description. What is this about? What problem does this app solve? How do I install it? It's like pip install, add to install apps, add to URLs, run the migrations, the stuff that I just showed for the feedback form example. And maybe some more text about usage. So some apps might be a bit more complicated. Then you might add some text here. How do you actually work with this app? What kind of APIs does it expose? What kind of settings does it have? What kind of template text can you use? And finally, I like to include a paragraph about contribution to make it easy for people who actually want to help me with this project, how to set it up on your local machine, and what kind of guidelines do you have to follow so that I will accept your pull requests, right? Okay, manifest file. This is a horrible thing. It's a super painful thing to learn this. It basically tells Python, when you want to upload your project to the Python package index, it tells what kind of files should be included in my package. So when somebody does pip install Django feedback form, this file actually defines what kind of files will be downloaded to your computer, right? Because I might have many, many more files on my machine. When I'm working on this project, I will be creating, I don't know, swap files. When I'm using Vim or Nano or something, they might create .orig. No, .orig is because of merge conflicts. But PyC files, like when I'm running my code, I'm testing it, all my .py files will be compiled, and I have these garbage files lying around on my system, and I don't want to upload these files to the Python package index, and I don't want people to download it and have it on their machines, right? So I will put global exclude here to make sure that all these kind of swap files and garbage files are not included. And this, for example, prune package name means when I'm running the test, I'm generating a coverage output. So that is a set of HTML files which tell me beautifully, these lines of code have been covered by tests, and these lines of code haven't been covered by tests. Also, this is something that doesn't really have anything to do with my project as such. I'm not going to commit this to GitHub. I'm not going to publish this on the Python package index. So this is why I would exclude these folders from the manifest file. Setup.py is the second horrible thing that takes ages to learn. And I think this is the minimal version I came up with. You can put a lot more stuff in there. I don't even know what it's all good for. But when I look around other reusable apps on GitHub, this is basically what everybody's using. And so just copy this, just take it for granted, fill out all these things. So when you want to release your package, you give it a name, you give it a version, a description. You say which license it is. You can have keywords here to make it easier to find your package on the Python package index. You will put your name, your email, your GitHub repository in here. And actually, the only really important thing is down here. You will say, this app requires Django. Of course, I mean, it's a reusable Django app. If you don't have Django installed, it doesn't matter. It's pointless to install this Django feedback form, right? So by putting install requires here, it means when somebody does pip install Django feedback form, it will automatically install Django as well. And you can even say, we need Django 1.3 or greater. We will not support older versions of Django. You can say this by saying greater than equals 1.3. There's one thing you should know. Never pin down the versions in this install requires here. Never say, we need Django equals 1.5.1. It's like saying, we only want this Django version. When you do that, people will hate you, because if they have in their requirements text file, it looks like this, you just define a lot of package names here, then somebody can run pip install -r requirements text, and it will go through this file line by line, install all these packages, right? And usually people would pin down the versions in their requirements text file because they want to create a sandboxed environment. They want to say, in order to run my software, you need Django version this, and you need Django feedback form version that, and so on. So he wants exactly these versions, yeah? And when he puts that into the requirements text file, it usually works, except you have put equals Django 1.3 in here. Then in the requirements text file, maybe he says, I want to have Django 1.4, will be installed. Then he installs Django feedback form, right, which says, I want to have Django 1.3. And then he removes Django 1.4 again and removes 1.3 again. And in the end, the user will be quite confused, like, what the hell is going on? I said I want to have Django 1.4 here, and after installation, I'm ending up with 1.3. So that's a horrible situation. And usually, people who use your apps, they are not aware of these files. They are somewhere in the file system, you never see them. So they will not know that this was the issue. You pinned it down here, right? So this is why people will hate you, because they will spend 2 hours figuring out why they end up with Django 1.3 all the time when they defined 1.4 in their requirements text. So this test requirements text is something that I usually add to my reusable apps. These are not related to the app as such. Only if people want to contribute to your app and want to help you programming it, they might want to have all these fancy tools. Like IPDB is very good for debugging, Flake 8 is very good for checking if your code is beautiful and looks like beautiful Python code and stuff like that. So it's useful for developers to have this requirements text file, so they can clone your app, they can run pip install -r test requirements text, and then they are good to go. They have a local development environment, and they can help contributing to your app, right? So that was the blue part. Now we will talk about the red part here. You will put an underscore init file, of course, into your folder, your app folder, because that makes it a Python module. And then you will put the version number inside. This is important when you want to upload it to the Python package index. You have to have a version number, right? App settings. So this is very Django specific, and since there are not so many Django developers here in the audience, I might skip this, but maybe just briefly. So usually when you want to use Django settings, you will do from django.conf import settings, and then you will say settings.feedback from caller, for example. But there's a problem with that, because maybe your setting has a default value. Like if your user uses your app and he is too lazy to actually define a color for that setting, you might probably want to provide a default value. Maybe red is just good for most people, so we will put the default value red here. Well, the problem is in your code, in your actual code of your app, which is like down here, you will probably use this setting several times, right? And each time you want to make sure that if it's not set, I want to use red. So that is a code repetition again, and I started with dry. We don't want to have code repetition. So that is why we will create an app settings.py file, and then we will import Django conf import settings, and we will set a variable here, which is only known internally by our app, right? And if somebody wants to, and by defining form color, we will actually try to access it in the original Django settings. If it's not there, we will use red, right? So this line of code makes sure if we access form color, we will get red, or we will get what the user has been put into his Django settings. So when we have set it up this way, in our actual app code, we will no longer use from django.conf import settings. Instead, we will use from our own app settings import form color, and then we will just use it, right? Okay, so this is for interesting to the Django developers in here. Maybe other people might be lost now. Static files and templates files is quite important when you are building Django apps. And there's just one caveat here, one catch that you need to be aware of. So we have our root folder with all the metadata files inside, the blue files, right? Then we have our package name, the red files I'm talking about right now. And there might be a static folder inside the package folder. And then you have to, you cannot just put your static files like JS files and CSS files into the static folder. No, you have to insert another folder which is called like your package name inside the static folder. This has to be done because when you run the manage.py collect static command, right, it will copy all the static folders from all reusable apps, and you might have 20 of them, into the static root folder of your Django project. And now imagine if you would have put styles.css right below package name static, except of package name static, instead of package name static package name. And another reusable app also has a styles.css, and they made the same mistake, putting the styles.css below the static folder directly. If Django collect static collects all these static files from all these apps, it will copy my styles.css from my first reusable app into the static root folder, and then it will find the other reusable app, copy styles.css again, and overwrite the other one. And then, well, one of these files is lost, and one of these apps will look crappy, right? So this is why you have to put another folder name in here, so that so that they don't distract each other when you have more than one app. Same is true for the templates. Finally, the tests. I've provided a few tricks here, because when you build reusable apps, the problem is you don't have a Django project up and running. So how do you test? And how do you review your stuff in the browser? Sometimes, I mean, doing web development is a visual thing. You want to see it. You can't just code and hope that it works. You have to see it in the browser. So I've put some tricks in here so that you can run your tests immediately, and you can do manage.py run server in order to start a local development server and actually see your reusable app without having it included into a Django project. Okay, test-driven development. Oh yeah, and there might be this test app folder, but it is advanced stuff. For example, if your app has generic foreign keys, you need to have dummy models in order to test the generic foreign key. But this is maybe, we are running out of time, and this is too complex to talk about here. South migrations, since I set it up in the way that we can use a manage.py file, we are able to run south migrations just as you are used to do it when you work with normal Django projects. So you can do schema migrations and data migrations, and you can just migrate your stuff. And when you want to preview it in your browser, you just run manage by run server like you always do when you work with your Django project. Okay. Yeah, and you saw in my test requirements file, there was this flag 8 requirement inside. So when you're working with the reusable app, you can always type flag 8 dot, and it will go through all files recursively, all Python files, and it will look if they look beautiful and obey the PEP 8 standard. And if you don't know what PEP 8 means, every Python programmer in the world should know what PEP 8 means. So follow that link and get some coffee, take half an hour time, and read this whole file. Okay, so publishing on the Python package index will work because we have this fancy setup.py file, which I explained in the beginning, and we have this manifest.in file, and then we can do Python setup.py as dist, which means source distribution, and it will do a test run and create a source distribution and show us all the files that would be included if we would publish now. And then you will have to look at all these files and make sure that it makes sense. And when it makes sense, you will run Python setup.py register. You need to have an account on the Python package index, of course, whereas you can just log in and create an account. And it will look into the setup.py file, look for your package name, and it will see if somebody else has already taken that package name. Then you will get an error. If not, it will say OK, and it will register this name for yourself. Once that is registered, you can run Python setup.py source distribution upload, and it will create a source distribution again, and it will upload it to the Python package index. And then, when this is done, people can do pip install Django feedback form, and your stuff is available for everybody in the world to easily install it and start using it, which is pretty awesome. I will skip this part about documentation. So I'm using Sphinx documentation. Also, I've provided a folder here for quick starting Sphinx, and then you would create an index RST file. You would put a file name like installation here, for example. You would create this installation file and write your restructured text code, and then you have a simple command make HTML, and Sphinx would generate beautiful documentation output. Okay, so all this that I've just talked about took me 2 years to figure out. And in doing those 2 years, I've written 65 reusable apps, and it was awful. Every single time, it's a huge pain in the ass. So we are here now to fix this problem once and forever. So as preparation for this talk, I produced this Django Reusable App Template, which you can find on GitHub. George, I will just take 5 or 10 more minutes, okay? So yeah, when you look at my company's GitHub profile here, oh, am I still online? Yes, I am. These are the 65 reusable apps that we have painstakingly built, and it was awful. And this is the Django Reusable App Template that we will try out now. So when you go to the README, it gives you simple instructions. You basically just have to clone this. So you will say git clone Django Reusable App Template, and we are going to call this new app my reusable app, just a stupid name. Okay, I've already done that, so we are not going to clone it in real. And then you go into that folder that you have just cloned, and when you look into it, so, oops, what's going on? Hello? Okay. So these are all these files that I've just talked about, right? All nicely tied together in this Git repository. And there's one file which is called init.shell, where you just have to put a few variable names in here. You will put your name, your email, you will give this thing a name that you will name the app, you will define your package name, you will define the name which you will use when you search the app on PyPy on the Python package index, and you say where's my Git repository for this project, and some keywords. So I've already filled that out. So let's run that file. So it takes a fraction of a second. Now, the init file is gone. It has deleted itself. When you do git lg or git log, you will see there's one initial commit. So the file already made sure this is a new reusable app, right? We are initiating a new Git repository here. We have an initial commit, and you are good to upload this into the world. It doesn't do anything now, but you can start programming right now. And you can forget about all the boilerplate stuff I was talking the last half hour. You can concentrate on the actual thing that you want to, the actual problem you want to solve with your reusable app, okay? So, yeah, let's try to, so, okay. Is this microphone on? It seems to be on. Yeah. I will just speak up. So we have this manage Py here. We can do run server. Oh. Okay. Oh, yeah, thanks. So, although this is not part of a Django project, it's just an isolated reusable app, we can do run server and we can have a look at our app. I mean, it doesn't do anything, so this is why we get this page not found error, but it's actually working, it's running. Or we could go into the my app tests folder and execute run tests py, and it will quickly execute all our tests here, and it will say we just ran one dummy test and it passed. The test is okay. So this is already very useful. Or if you want to start some documentation, you will go into the docs folder. You will do Sphinx quick start. You will answer a bunch of questions. Project name, blah, Martin, version 1, and then just say yes to everything. And it creates a few files here. You can go into the source folder and look into that index file. And now, let's say we want to start our documentation by describing installation instructions. Installation, like this. And then you create a file name with the same name. You give it a headline, right? Installation. You describe the installation process, and you can run make HTML, and Sphinx will do its magic, and then you can open the build HTML index. You can open your documentation, and this is the same kind of documentation that you are used to from the official Django documentation, from the official Python documentation. So now we can see we have this chapter about installation here, and we can read our documentation, right? And when you have the docs in that folder, you can even, on GitHub, you can create a post commit hook and connect it to readthedocs.org. So that means every time you push your code and you push updates to your documentation, readthedocs.org will get updated as well. And so you basically, so let's have a look. For example, Django libs is one of our big projects that gets updated frequently. So we have a big documentation here, and it's on read the docs. And I don't have to care about hosting this. I don't have to care about updating this. I will just change a few words in docs. I will push my code, and a second later on readthedocs.org, this will be online. This will be indexed by Google, and everybody can find it. It's really awesome. So this is Sphinx, and now the most exciting thing. Now we will do Python. This is the last thing we will do. Setup Py register. We will see if somebody has already created an app called Django My Reusable App. I don't hope so. Nobody has done it. Great. So we get server response 200 OK, means our name has now been registered on the Python package index. Then we can do Python setup py as dist. First, we will just look at it. If all these, OK, now it's pretty messy to read, so you would probably make it like this. You will look at all these files and make sure that there are no like swap files, temp files, garbage files inside, because you don't want to publish those on the internet, right? If all looks good, you will run Python setup py as dist upload. It will create a tarball. It will, and it looks at the version number, right? I told you we have this init __init py file. There's a version variable inside, and this is the 0.1. Where is it? Here on the file name. The 0.1 tarball is, this is the version number we have put into this init file. So now we should be able to find this file, this project. Oh, we can use this, right? Yeah. So let's search for it. Django, that should be good. Yeah. So there it is. And because our readme.rst is a restructured text file, oh, but it's misformed. Because the headline here is too short. If I would fix that, it would look more beautiful. But right now, Python package index isn't able to parse it properly. But again, it gives everybody a quick information about how to install this. So people can now do pip install my Django, my reusable app. Huh? Oh, okay. If they are able to type correctly, reusable app, and it will be installed. So it's no longer awful, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. How do you deal with, do you have any good way of dealing with JavaScript files? Have you heard of all this?
Yeah, JavaScript files.
Compression.
Okay.
So if you have a lot of apps that you're including, you might be getting 12 versions of jQuery and so on.
Okay. So if it's just about compression, you can make sure to provide a minified version of your JavaScript files in your reusable app. And then in your README, you will tell your users to actually include the minified version instead of the original version. Or many Django projects will probably use Django compressor. And they will put all these JavaScript files they need inside the compressor tag and make sure that they will take care of compression in the scope of their Django project, right? So it's not really my job to compress the files in the reusable app. The people who are running the Django project can take care of this.
Yeah, I got confused. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, then we should all go out and write reusable apps now.